Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if we judge artificial intelligence harsher than we judge humans, especially when it comes to tough moral choices? You know how sometimes you hear about an AI messing up, and it feels like a big deal, maybe even bigger than if a person made the same mistake? Well, this new meta-analysis dives deep into that exact question. It tries to figure out if there is something special about AI that makes us judge it differently, or if it is more about what we think AI is capable of. This study's big question is pretty straightforward. When it comes to making moral decisions, do we hold AI to a higher standard than humans? Think about classic moral dilemmas like the trolley problem. If an AI makes a difficult choice in that situation, do we judge it more harshly than if a human made the same choice? The researchers looked at a bunch of different ideas about how we judge morality. One thought is that we see AI as a totally different kind of thing, like how we might not ask our pet cat to make a big medical decision for us. This is the something special about AI idea. The other idea is that we judge AI based on the same principles we judge humans. And any differences come from how we perceive AI's abilities or the situation. This is the nothing special about AI idea. So, how did they try to answer this question? They basically did a mega study, a meta-analysis, which means they gathered data from 50 different experiments. These experiments involved thousands of people, and they all looked at how participants judged moral decisions made by either a human or an AI. They took all these studies and crunched the numbers to see if there was an overall pattern. They were looking at how people rated the moral permissibility of AI versus human actions in tough situations. They started with a huge number of studies, and then, using specific rules, they narrowed it down to the ones that were most relevant. They were super careful about making sure the studies they included were comparing humans and AI doing the exact same or very similar things, so they could really compare apples to apples. Now, translating all those different study results into one big picture is tricky. The researchers used something called a standardized effect size, kind of like a universal score, for how big a difference was found between judging AI and humans. Positive scores meant AI was judged as more permissible, and negative scores meant AI was judged as harsher. Sometimes in a big analysis like this, you find a few studies that have really extreme results. These can mess with the overall picture. So the researchers carefully checked for these outliers results that were way out there compared to the others. They had some really sophisticated ways of spotting these, and after looking closely, they decided to remove a few that seemed to be skewing the results. This left them with a cleaner, more reliable set of data to work with. And here is the big reveal. After all that work, the analysis of the cleaned up data showed that AI agents' moral decisions are judged as less morally permissible than equivalent human decisions. To put it simply, when AI makes a tough moral choice, people tend to judge it a bit more harshly than if a human made the same choice. This is represented by a small negative effect size, meaning AI was rated slightly lower on moral permissibility. This forest plot gives you a visual of all the different studies. You can see some studies show a bigger difference, some show a smaller difference, and some even show the opposite. But when you look at the overall line, it is just slightly to the left of center, indicating that overall AI decisions were judged as a bit less permissible. But it is not quite that simple. The researchers also looked at factors that might change how we judge AI. They called these moderators. They found that things like how the AI's decision led to a bad outcome really mattered. For example, if the bad outcome was a direct intention, AI wasn't judged much differently than humans. But if the bad outcome was a side effect, AI was judged more harshly. One of the most important moderators they found was something called PMC, which stands for perceived mental capacity. This is basically what we think an AI is capable of thinking and feeling. When people thought the AI had higher mental capacity, closer to what they thought a human had, the difference in how they judged human versus AI decisions got smaller. If people thought the AI had much lower mental capacity, its decisions were judged more harshly. So, what does this all mean? The overall finding is that there is a slight tendency to judge AI more harshly in moral situations, but it is not a huge difference. And when they looked at things like perceived mental capacity, it suggests that our judgments are flexible. We don't seem to have a fixed idea that AI is always way worse. Instead, our perception of AI's capabilities plays a big role. This is where the something special about AI versus nothing special about AI debate comes in. The findings lean towards the nothing special side, but with a big asterisk. It is not that AI is inherently judged differently, but rather that our perceptions of AI's mental capacity and agency make a difference. if we can improve how we perceive AI's capabilities, or if AI itself develops in ways that enhance those perceptions, the differences in judgment might shrink. The study really hammered home the point that our beliefs about AI's mental capacity are super important when we attribute more mental capacity to AI things like consciousness, or the ability to feel. We judge it closer to how we judge humans. This means that as AI becomes more sophisticated and perhaps even mimics certain human-like capacities, our moral judgments might become more aligned. Now, no study is perfect. The researchers pointed out that there was still a lot of variation or heterogeneity across the studies they looked at. This means that different experiments, even when measuring similar things, sometimes got different results. They suggest that things like how the questions were worded in the studies, what words they used to ask about morality, could have influenced the outcomes. Also, the quality of the research itself varied, and they noted that a lot of studies were on the lower end of methodological quality. This suggests we need more rigorous research in the future to get clearer answers. Even with these limitations, the findings are pretty significant. They tell us that our moral judgments aren't set in stone when it comes to AI. They can be influenced by our beliefs about AI's intelligence and its potential for mental experiences. So, what is the takeaway for us? It is that our judgment of AI is very human-centric. We're projecting our understanding of human morality onto these new entities. This means that as AI develops, it is not just about the technology, but also about how we, as humans, perceive and interact with it. Developers need to think about how their AI will be perceived, and how that perception might affect trust and acceptance. In the end, the study leans towards the nothing special hypothesis, meaning we don't inherently judge AI differently in a fundamental way. However, our judgments are highly malleable and influenced by our perceptions of AI's mental capacity and agency. The slight harshness in judgment seems to be more about our current understanding and expectations of AI rather than an intrinsic bias against it. This is a really important distinction as we integrate AI more and more into our lives. What is your take on this? Do you find yourself judging AI decisions differently than human ones? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more science explained simply, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.